The latest wave of protests in Iran follows a pattern that is familiar yet increasingly dangerous. Deep economic distress has once again spilled into a nationwide unrest. Serious in scale and geographic reach, but still short of evolutionary momentum. Over the past 2 decades, Iran has experienced repeated protest cycles, each sparked by different triggers but rooted in the same structural pressures. Economic mismanagement, sanctions, corruption, and a widening gap between state ideology and a lived reality. What distinguishes the present moment is accumulation. The state has fewer economic buffers, society has less patience, and the leadership is operating under intensified internal and external scrutiny. Economic collapse is the immediate catalyst. The sharp devaluation of the rial in late December, reportedly approaching 1.4 million to the US dollar on the open market, triggered protests in Tehran on December 28. Inflation, estimated near 50%, has hollowed out salaries, pensions, and savings, while unemployment and underemployment persist, particularly among the young. The participation of traders and bazaar-linked networks is especially significant. Historically, when merchants mobilize, it signals systemic economic anxiety rather than episodic anger. The bazaar has long functioned as both an economic backbone and a political bellwether. Its unrest suggests hardship has crossed class boundaries, turning protest into a survival response rather than an ideological campaign. The protests spread rapidly beyond Tehran and as of Saturday were reported in at least 185 cities across all 31 provinces, including areas traditionally viewed as loyal to the establishment. Western Kurdish regions and southeastern Baluch majority areas, especially Sistan and Baluchistan province, have joined unrest that initially appeared urban and economically centered. These regions already suffer from chronic underdevelopment and heavy securitization. When economic grievances intersect with regional and ethnic marginalization, the state faces a more complex and costly security challenge, even in absence of separatist demands. Although the unrest shows growing boldness, it remains smaller in scale than the mass protests of 2019 or the 2022 women life freedom movement sparked by the death of Mahsa Amini. What it lacks in size, it compensates for in persistence and dispersion. The protests have remained broadly leaderless, limiting coordination but complicating efforts to fully suppress them. The human cost has been substantial. More than 500 protesters have been reportedly killed and over 12,000 arrested, underscoring both the intensity of repression and the regime's determination to prevent escalation. The state's response reflects calibrated containment rather than confidence. Authorities are pursuing a dual strategy: conciliatory rhetoric from parts of the government paired with hardline measures on the ground, including widespread internet shutdowns, special courts, and selective mass arrests. This approach suggests an effort to manage unrest without provoking international escalation. Warnings from Donald Trump that the United States could respond if mass violence continues have sharpened Tehran's cost-benefit calculations, reinforcing restraint even as repression continues. At the same time, Trump's recent claim that Iranian representatives have approached him to discuss negotiations, including the nuclear issue, adds an important strategic layer. This development reinforces a view held by some analysts from the outset, that largely leaderless protests can function as leverage rather than a pathway to regime change. Sustained unrest weakens Tehran's external negotiating position and raises urgency without pushing the system towards collapse. In this reading, pressure on the street and flexibility on the negotiating table are not contradictory, but complementary. This dynamic helps explain why external actors favor diplomacy over intervention. Symbolic military action would likely be absorbed, while a serious attempt at regime decapitation could trigger uncontrollable escalation and empower even more hardline forces. As Ali Wais of the International Crisis Group has noted, doing too little risks irrelevance, while doing too much risks breaking the system with unpredictable consequences. Western caution is reinforced by fears that regime collapse in Iran could spark a new wave of regional instability, reminiscent of Arab Spring, an outcome many Arab governments and external powers are keen to avoid. Despite the scale of unrest, the regime remains under strain but not facing an existential threat. Iran's political system is layered and institutionalized, combining ideology, security forces, patronage networks, and managed electoral mechanisms. It has repeatedly absorbed shocks through repression, protest fatigues, and internal recalibration. Protesters articulate deep anger and alienation, but they lack unified leadership, organizational depth, and a credible alternative capable of triggering elite fragmentation. This assessment aligns with historian Abbas Amanat, who argues that regime remains capable of cracking down precisely because there is no organized and determined opposition. External figures often cited as alternatives, including Reza Pahlavi, lack both domestic legitimacy and institutional support. As Wali Nasser has similarly argued, change in Iran historically comes from within rather than through rupture. In the short term, outcomes remain constrained. Further momentum is possible, but heavy security pressure and disrupted communications are limiting sustained escalation. The most likely scenario remains uneasy equilibrium, continued unrest, selective concessions, negotiations under pressure, and deferred change rather than collapse. Iran's crisis is deepening, but transformation remains postponed.